Hello everyone, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Ed Arnold, and I'm Vice President of Products here at LeveragePoint. I'd like to welcome all of you to another one of our monthly webinars of thought leadership in value-based strategy. Sponsored by LeveragePoint. LeveragePoint provides the only software solution for value-based pricing. We offer a cloud-based collaboration platform that supports product innovation as well as sales enablement that changes the way companies create, communicate, and capture value. Find out more about us from our website, LeveragePoint.com. Now, during the webinar, if you have any specific questions or comments, please feel free to enter them in the right-hand panel in the question section. Later on, we'll respond to as many of them as we can. Now it's time to introduce today's speakers. We are very excited to be doing our first webinar with our new strategic alliance partner, Kalypso. Kalypso is the world's premier innovation consulting firm, and they are experts in the areas of product development and product lifecycle management across multiple industries. And with us today from Kalypso are Bill Poston and Reed Shelger. Bill is founder and managing partner at Kalypso. He leads Kalypso's portfolio and pipeline management practice while serving clients in technology-driven industries. Reed is senior consultant at Kalypso. He is a pricing professional with experience delivering and applying pricing tools and the methodologies to drive incremental profit improvement for his clients. So, welcome, gentlemen. Thanks so much for being with us today.
Thank you, Ed. Hello, everyone. This is Bill Poston. I am going to first start by just going over the agenda that we are going to follow on the webinar this morning. I'm going to introduce the concepts that we are going to cover today, and then my colleague Reed Shelger is going to take you through a sample case study of how these concepts can be applied in your day-to-day work in product development. We'll then come back and talk about a couple of key points that we can reinforce for all of us based on the case study. And then Ed from LeveragePoint is going to share some perspectives on how their solution can make this work within the LeveragePoint solution. If we'll go to the value management slide, I'll start just by saying that the concepts of value management are well understood and widely adopted by product marketers and product managers in market. So when we are looking at the application of value management practices and price setting strategies, those disciplines are widely adopted and well understood as they are applied to a product at launch or throughout its in-market life cycle. What is less well understood and less widely adopted is the application of those same practices in the front end of innovation or throughout the product development life cycle. We struggle in the early stage because of a lack of reference points, a lack of information with regard to price and value and the ultimate equation that will drive the success in market. It's not unusual for us to see product marketing having a big hand in the front end of innovation, in teeing up ideas for development, but too often they go missing in the middle when critical trade-off decisions are having to be made around definition of the product and feature sets. Addressing this middle part of development between selecting a product to launch into development and picking it back up at launch is the focus of the conversation today. If you go to the next slide. There are a number of issues that our clients struggle with in the market. The most common today is what I call rampant incrementalism. There has been, particularly since the outset of the financial crisis, but even trending significantly prior to 2008, is a tendency for particularly large organizations, to play it safe and to focus their investments in product development on improving their existing product set rather than going into the unknown and investing in the development of breakthrough products. There has been some research published recently that says there has been an 80% increase in the allocation of investment to that category of improving existing products over the last 14 years, which means we are less and less comfortable with the risks associated with breakthroughs, and one of those challenges is it's very difficult for us to define the price-value equation when we're going into new markets. Particularly, this is a particular problem when there is limited investment and resource capacity to go around. Development pipelines are overloaded, which makes selecting the right portfolio of concepts even more important, that we can try to get the most value through a very constrained pipeline. Lengthy development times represent challenges to us, both from a technical standpoint, but also from a market and price value standpoint, because the competitive landscape can change throughout the development cycle, and the most nimble organizations will change with it and adapt the concept of their product in response to market needs during development. This can lead to particular challenges around the cost associated with having to adapt, but that lengthy development time creates a challenge for us that we need to address. And then, as I mentioned earlier, sometimes our value analysis, it's not that we don't have a good insight into where we can extract value in the market. It's that we tend to be disconnected across functions and across product lifecycle phases. So we do good analysis in the project selection phase. We do great analysis when we're justifying a product to launch into development, but we lose sight of that justification and the insights that went into it when we get to product launch. Often this is an organizational issue. You have different people and different groups that are responsible for doing this work, and so it drives rework, it drives a lack of consistency in how we value products, but it also can impact the feature set as well, as we're forced to do trade-offs. I worked with a client over the last year that was a digital camera manufacturer, and throughout the development cycle, the market needs kept changing to the point where we had a great feature set lined up that addressed the right price-value equations for what they perceived to be a gap in the marketplace. However, during the development cycle, the ability to do push-button wireless uploads to social networks became a critical requirement that didn't really exist at the beginning of the development cycle. And so that kind of analysis and the ability to pivot during development is an important part of the concepts that we'll discuss today. So I'm going to turn this over to my colleague Reed Shelger, and he's going to highlight these concepts through a case study.
So thanks again, and my name is Reed Shelger, and I'm going to walk you through a case study that's based on some work we recently completed. And this company was in the industry they described as the nutraceuticals industry, which basically means that they made nutritional products, but not just your average nutritional products. They were looking for nutritional products with significant medical benefits, and they were really driving themselves to come up with more and more big breakthrough products, even products that would, imagine a nutritional drink with benefits of potentially preventing or curing cancer and things of that nature. So they've been working on this to incorporate the concept of design to value, which is basically how do we get more market-driven and voice of customer-driven insights to drive our product innovation, and how do we work that into the process. And they've been struggling with that, so they engaged Kalypso to help them define the problem and figure out a solution in terms of process and strategy. And so we were there for a few months, and we interviewed several key stakeholders, and a few of the things that started to become clear. One was that the key product attributes were not being defined early enough in the process. So they had a typical phase gate process where stage 1 was the idea phase, and then stage 2 was the concept phase, and it's really during that stage 2 where they were making most of those key trade-off decisions. What are going to be the set of product features and attributes? What are going to be the customer benefits that will drive this innovation? And they were making those decisions in stage 2, but it was very loose, and they were having a lot of miscommunication between the two key contributing parts of the organization in those discussions, which were the marketing side and then the product development side. And they realized that those two groups were not on the same page oftentimes, and then they would get into stage 3 or stage 4, and marketing would uncover a new, as in Bill's example, a new key feature or attribute, and that would cause rework and churn. And oftentimes it wasn't because that insight was truly new. Marketing oftentimes was aware of that need, but it just hadn't been properly communicated, or there was just a disconnect even in terms of language, where we thought we told you that was important, but the product developers didn't understand that. The second thing we realized, and this was part of what was causing that problem, was they were working in a siloed linear fashion, meaning marketing would do their work, their market research, and they would come up with a product concept, which would then be handed over to the product development group to go off and do some prototyping and development exploration. Then they would hand back their findings back to marketing, and so on. And it was a series of linear handoffs, and that was not optimal. And so again, this misalignment was causing rework and churn. So the slide here just basically summarizes what I described. This was sort of their current state way of working, and again, I'm focusing here in stage 2, which in their phase gate process was the concept definition phase. And again, it was primarily led by marketing, who would be doing market research, trying to understand what are the consumer needs and wants, and they would come up with what they called the target product definition. And this was again, at this point, it's pretty high level, but this is a description of what the product should be, what the key claims will be, and so on. And then they would hand that over to the prototyping group, who would basically come up with a benchtop version of the potential product. They would then give that back to marketing, who would then begin going out in the market and doing some real market testing and validation. And that's the point at which they would often find out either a new key learning, or they would uncover something about the product that did not match what the market wanted, and that would cause that feedback loop. The other thing I want to point out here is, because of the linear nature of their way of working, the prototyping group wasn't really beginning their work until late in the stage, and that really meant that they didn't have the time that they needed to do meaningful work, and so their development work was being cut short. So the question was, how can we be more diligent in stage 2? How can we have a better process where we're going to avoid some of these problems and be more effective? So this slide just displays the high-level solution that we jointly came up with. And the key here is that you see in the middle of the slide, conduct market research and testing and prototyping happens in parallel, so it's no longer linear. At the front end, at the beginning of the stage, they're going to jointly do a brainstorming session, and they're going to come up with all the potential product attributes and benefits of what this product could be. And we describe this as the divergent phase. So within stage 2, we said that there should be a divergent portion where everything is open-ended, everything is about considering all possibilities, and then a convergent phase, where we start to narrow down and we start to say, based on market insights and based on the prototyping and product development exploration we've done, we can eliminate some of those possibilities and start to converge on what the product will actually be. So up front, it's important that you're really in that divergent mindset. You're considering everything, and that's going to help drive more breakthrough innovations rather than you don't want to be limited in your thinking at that phase. The next step would be, again, jointly between those two key participants, being marketing and R&D, to align on multiple scenarios to be explored. And again, the key here is you may not know exactly what the product's going to be. There are going to be some areas where you're just not sure whether a particular benefit or attribute is important. So let's explore both. Let's come up with multiple things to explore, and the marketing side will go off and do some market research. Meanwhile, product development will go off and do some prototyping. And then later in the phase, towards the end, we can come back together, compare notes, and have a structured conversation about which is the right solution to move forward with based on a combination of what the market wants and what we've learned from a technical feasibility standpoint. So I'll now walk through each of those steps, A, B, and C, and talk a little bit in practical terms of how that was done. So during the brainstorming session, and again, this is that divergent portion, and I have a screenshot here from the LeveragePoint tool, which is a great way to structure this conversation, but I'm going to be using and this is a completely illustrative example, this is not a real product, but let's pretend that the potential product is a new protein shake with the benefit of helping improve the development of muscle gain. So from the marketing standpoint, they might come up with a list of benefits. And again, when I distinguish between benefits and product features or attributes, benefits are those things that are consumer focused or market focused, and features or attributes are more specific to the product. So a benefit, for example, might be lean body mass. So the marketers come up and say, we want a product that promotes lean body mass. And then the product developers will say, well, for us to deliver that in terms of the product feature, that means it's going to have a high protein level. That means it's going to have a high fat level, because we know that those two components are important to delivering lean body mass. And so just that discussion right there of being able to translate between a customer benefit and a product feature is very important, and that was missing. And we ended up jokingly referring to this as the Rosetta Stone that helped marketing and R&D understand each other. Because there were many times they had a lot of examples where marketing had said, we want it to be lean body mass, and without having this conversation, later down the road, in stage 3 even, they would come back and say, oh, we forgot to tell you it has to be low fat. We didn't realize that this was going to be a high fat product, and our consumers are calorie conscious and they wanted it to be low fat. So again, getting these groups in the room together to discuss the potential features and what that might mean, the potential benefits and what that might mean in terms of product features or attributes is an important first step. So again, as I said before, the next thing that they did was they said, rather than coming up with a single product definition, which was what they'd done historically, let's come up with multiple potential scenarios to explore. So let's focus not on what we know, but let's focus also on what we don't know. So in this example, let's say after having that conversation, they said, well, we're not sure how important it is that this product is low calorie or low fat. So let's make one scenario where it's going to deliver all those muscle benefits, so it has high protein, it has high fat, it has high protein, but it's also low calorie and low fat. Now technically we know that that might be more challenging, but let's try, and let's also go out in the market and see how important those features are to consumers. But meanwhile, let's also explore a couple of other scenarios. In the second scenario, let's remove the constraint of being low calorie or low fat. Let's just make a more simplified version that tastes great, has the high protein, has the high calcium, but again, not necessarily low calorie or low fat. And then let's come up with a third version that's low calorie and low fat, but maybe has a less emphasis on taste. Because in order to make a product be low in calories, you might have to forego some of the benefits of flavor. So in this way, they would structure multiple scenarios that they could then go out and test the market and also test from a prototyping standpoint. Again, this multiple scenarios is what enables the two groups to work in parallel, because now you can start testing all three on the benchtop while marketing tests all three in the market, whereas before they were working in a linear manner. So then again, towards the end of stage 2, the two groups would come back together and they would evaluate the multiple scenarios and select which one, based on all of those factors, has the best chance to succeed in the market. So here we have the 3 solutions: a fully loaded solution, a great tasting solution, and a low calorie solution. By this point, the product development team would also be able to tell you what the estimated material cost would be based on potentially a draft bill of materials. And in the far right column, they would also be able to tell you effort. So it's important not only to focus on cost, but effort. And effort could be things like, can we run it on our existing plants and machinery, or would it require new machinery? Is it based on ingredients that we already have from approved suppliers, or does it involve some new commodities that we're not familiar with working with? What's the technical risk? And what's the timing? So in this scenario, to deliver something that's low fat, low calorie, and tastes great would potentially be very difficult. It might involve some new commodities, and so that one would have some a higher cost and some high effort. And some of the other scenarios, maybe, look, this is very similar to another product we've already made. We can run it on our existing line, and so it would be relatively low effort. And again, then marketing would also be able to tell you, based on market research, we now know that in this example, taste is very important, followed by protein level and calcium level. But let's say being low fat and being low calorie may not be as important. So those attributes fall off if this is my list of critical product attributes. And we can gauge how each product variation performs against each of those attributes. So you see here the second option, great taste, exceeds very well on taste, and it performs decently on protein level and calcium level. So this gives you just a structured framework to have these discussions and make these decisions. We don't recommend that the tool is supposed to give you the answer. Obviously, the product development team and marketing team have a lot of valuable experience, and we want to use their expert judgment to make the decisions, but this again provides a great framework to structure that conversation. So what's the point of all this? And this is a slide we use to articulate the idea to their executives. It is really that as you move through product development into stage 3 and stage 4, the cost of making a design change increases exponentially. So stage 3 in this example is where you really start to do your plant trials and maybe some quantitative market research studies, so things that are very high cost. And the objective is to learn as much as you can at the lowest cost possible. So doing product development in stage 2, where you're just working at a small benchtop scale, maybe you're only doing qualitative research rather than a big quantitative study. If you can learn as much in stage 2 as you can to reduce the frequency of late stage changes, it's a huge benefit. So again, most companies might be making changes in stage 3 or beyond where it's very high cost, and the best practice is to learn that in stage 2 and reduce development, rework, and launch delays. So taking a little bit more time and being more diligent and following the process that we've laid out here in stage 2 is going to have big benefits in terms of time savings and cost savings. And so just to summarize a few of the lessons learned from this case, The first is to follow the 80-20. We encountered a lot of pushback when we first proposed this idea of doing some product development before you've done all of your market research to define the product concept. People were very uncomfortable making assumption-based decisions early on in stage 2. We heard a lot of, well, we just don't know yet what the product set should be. And so, again, the key here is follow the 80-20 rule, become more comfortable with assumption-based decision-making. A lot of people in this company had had bad experiences where if they had made an assumption or put a number on something that had turned out to be wrong, they were held accountable, and people had been yelled at or disciplined. And so you want to foster a culture in the organization where people are comfortable making assumption-based decisions, especially when it involves innovation, because you don't have those benchmarks, and there are a lot of unknowns, but we still have to do our best to make the right decisions. The other thing about this point is this also is one of the drivers that leads to the problem Bill mentioned about rampant incrementalism. When people are fearful that if you make assumptions about things that you're not sure about, that you'll be disciplined, they're more likely to take the safe bet. And so if you really want breakthrough innovations, you have to change the performance metrics and change the way innovation teams are compensated so that they don't have that fear and they aren't tempted to game their numbers or take safe bets. The flip side of that is to focus on learning and exploration, document all assumptions, and the way that you incentivize and measure the performance of your innovation teams is how diligent are they about following this process, how well do they document their assumptions, and how effective are they at learning. So whether or not the innovation succeeds, did we learn something? Did we validate or invalidate some assumptions that can help us with our future innovations? The other point is that the framework triggers the important conversations to happen sooner. So as I said in that discussion where you're brainstorming about potential features and benefits, and you recognize that in order to deliver muscle gain, it might also mean high fat, rather than that simple point may not have come up until late in stage 2 or into stage 3. And here, having that conversation up front makes those conversations happen sooner and helps you learn sooner. And then finally, the idea of exploring multiple potential scenarios enables parallel work. You don't have to narrow down on exactly what the product's going to be before you allow your product developers to start testing and exploring. Benchtop exploration in stage 2 is very low cost. The incremental cost of exploring 2 or 3 scenarios relative to 1 is negligible compared to the cost of having to start over or repeat a plant trial if you recognize something like this once you're into stage 3 or stage 4. So that concludes the overview of the case study, and I'll now pass it back to Bill to conclude the webinar.
Thanks, Reed. We can implement design to value disciplines from the team level with product marketers and R&D engineers and scientists working together to adopt these tools. We found, however, that we can improve the rate of adoption and ensure that the design to value principles and disciplines are applied if we simultaneously create demands for this type of analysis at the gatekeeper level. Many of you probably have portfolio review committees or gate committees that are tasked with evaluating product concepts and making go, no-go decisions on individual investments. I think that anytime we can use a framework like the design to value framework that Reed showed you to bring consistency and objectivity into these gate conversations, the better off we are. Anything that moves and elevates the discussion beyond best PowerPoint wins, is a real value. However, we do not let the outcomes or the output from these models simply drive the decision. They are an input into gate discussions that allow us to facilitate more informed conversation and allow gatekeepers to apply management judgment to the decisions that they make. So we believe that driving adoption of design to value can be facilitated by changing the way gatekeepers evaluate product concepts, incorporating customer value analyses into the gate reviews and insisting that teams have this type of analysis available to share. This allows us to optimize the portfolio for value, not just making discrete choices around individual projects, but looking at the portfolio of options we have available to us and optimizing those decisions for value. Another important thing to remember about the way that these design to value tools work is it's not just project versus project. Oftentimes it's product scope and feature set versus product scope and feature set. So we tend to think of gate reviews as discrete choices around individual projects, when oftentimes the more valuable conversation is getting the definition of the project right itself. So having gatekeepers trained to ask the right questions around target costing, around feature value versus what the market is really looking for, having them ask smart questions about probability of commercial success, and ultimately not taking the analysis and the output from the analysis at face value, but challenging the assumptions that the team used to create the analysis itself, and taking a very proactive stance to force a rescoping of the project or ultimately deciding not to move forward if it doesn't pass their muster based upon the value that we can contribute to the market and the differential value that we can create over competing alternatives. So driving the implementation of these disciplines via your gate structure is an important part of the adoption and implementation success story. And you can do that by training gatekeepers to understand the design to value tools and analysis and to ask better questions. The other question we get quite often is, these disciplines, particularly market research, is a highly refined set of disciplines in the consumer packaged goods industry, where we have lots of data, lots of consumers, and firms that have established pretty good track records for being able to predict in-market success. But how do we apply the same disciplines in a business-to-business environment where we might not have the same level of market research expertise available to us? And what we try to do with our B2B clients is to have them learn from the consumer-driven businesses' experiences and work to adopt similar practices and taking advantage of the success that we've seen in the consumer industries. A couple of examples: test marketing, which may mean working with a lead customer, is the B2B equivalent of test marketing, providing the field with the ability to do minor manipulation of products to see if they can create a superior solution. That is the equivalent of menu innovation in the quick-serve restaurant industry, where you have potentially thousands of franchisees that you give them a little flexibility to create menu items to serve their local markets. And if something hits, you can take it, adopt it, and scale it out either nationally or globally. So providing some flexibility for your field teams in a business-to-business environment to experiment and get feedback directly from customers around what they value most in the features in your products. Being able to do customer impact analysis when we're assessing value, it's not just about, does a consumer, are they willing to pay more for taste versus calories? In a business-to-business environment, the value that we deliver is often, you can often model that in your customer's P&L. So, if I give you a tool that lasts 30% longer, what is the impact going to be on your P&L at your customer's level? So you can adopt these same kind of value categories, but even get more explicit with the fundamental benefit and P&L impact that you can have at the customer level. And then rapid prototyping and modeling. This is becoming more and more prevalent as the simulation software is improving, and we can not only develop solid model prototypes using 3D printers and reducing the cost dramatically to put a physical prototype in a customer's hands, we can also combine that with virtual simulation to create very realistic experiences that we can get the same kind of value feedback at a much lower cost early in the development cycle. So for those of you that are in more B2B industries, all is not lost. There are ways, and an increasing number of ways, that you can adopt the same consumer-driven design-to-value practices into your businesses. So we believe that this is a critical business discipline that will differentiate winners from losers in the future. Smart product development organizations are those that make good choices about how they allocate investment, and those that are able to get to market quicker with products that the market desires. Being smart about incorporating value analysis into your development decisions and allocation of investment is a critical way to capture that benefit. If you do this well, you'll increase the efficiency and speed in your product development process, simply because you'll be doing more work in parallel, you'll be experimenting earlier in the cycle, and you'll reduce the rework that's required in later stages of development. That will also reduce cost, not just the cost of the time associated with it, but the cost of many of the physical activities that are required in later stages of development. But those two benefits really pale in comparison to the benefit of launching a winner. And if you take the design to value disciplines to heart, the probability of success in your innovation portfolio goes up dramatically. And you'll have an opportunity to deliver bigger, better breakthrough innovations by collaborating on a cross-functional basis between marketing and R&D, doing more parallel work, and making smarter decisions around the features that we pack into our products that allow us to win in the marketplace. So how do you get started? Those of you that are interested in driving the adoption of design-to-value principles and practices, I would start by creating that burning platform in your organization by asking hard questions, gathering that voice of the customer from your organization to help you define the problem. Ask questions about the features that were in the latest product that you just launched. Which ones of those are really valued by our customers, and which ones of those were just put into the product at some cost that don't really allow us to differentiate ourselves and win. start to challenge why your products have been successful. If you have some that have underperformed, ask yourself whether you really knew what customers valued when you launched that product into development, and create a burning platform that will get others aligned to the needs. Once you have that, you can create a small coalition to help define the benefits case. And you can use recent product launches and the historical anecdote from the development of those recent products to develop a good story around what we might have been able to save in development costs, what we might have been able to deliver in tangible benefits, whether or not that product has hit its numbers or not. And lastly, just make sure that you understand that coming up with a great solution is only part of the battle. Trying to drive widespread adoption and education throughout the organization is also important to be able to do this on a consistent and a repeatable and ultimately a systematic fashion. Getting the tools right is really the easy part. Getting the discipline highly refined and widely adopted within your organization is the hard part. But there have been many that have gone down this path successfully before you, and you can learn from the experiences that they have had. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ed from LeveragePoint, and he's going to show us a little bit of the software.
Yes, well, thanks, first of all, Bill and Reed. Excellent presentation, good overview of the design to value approach. And before we get to the questions, I just wanted to take a moment to build on some of your observations and share our experiences in working with clients to embed LeveragePoint into their stage gate processes. So this slide is going to provide you an overview of some of the use cases we use for value modeling. So to begin, I totally agree with Reed's point that it's never too early to think about value with new products, especially right up front in the first stage or maybe even before that. Many of our customers do use LeveragePoint to build value models, to evaluate projects at gates in order to filter out those projects that deserve to be killed at an early stage. In later stages, often what our clients do is they refine and validate their value hypotheses, and then after they do that, begin to think about where to set price by using price sensitivity. Another use case is to understand customer segmentation, because value does change as you look across different customer groups. So a quick example, we're working with a couple European customers right now that use this to take a value model and adapt it for each of the countries that they sell into, because there are definite differences in specifications and requirements as you go from country to country in Europe. And then finally, another great use for this sort of platform approach is in the product launch stage, and that's where customers craft consistent value communications messages that they use to create content for sales and the distribution channel. So really, by having this all on the collaborative platform, as opposed to doing it in a manual spreadsheet-based way, you ensure better consistency, scalability, and control. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to jump into our application. I'm going to show you a quick example of how this actually looks in our application. And what I've done is I've taken the case study that Reed had put together and created a value model. Here you see a summary description of economic value estimation value model. Here I'm changing the perspective from the end user consumer customer to the B2B distributor customer, specifically a small specialty retail chain. It's very common for companies, including CPG type companies, to value model their distribution channel. And as you know, in the distribution business, the relevant benefits are a little bit different than from the end user customer. So for a nutraceutical product like what Reed was showing, it's not so much the taste or the protein or the calcium level, but rather, their margins, market growth, and inventory turns. So let me zoom in here and show you a couple of value drivers. The first one tells the story, of why they should put this product on the shelves. And here you'll see some very explicit assumptions about entering new market segments. That is, bringing new customers into the store to buy this potential blockbuster product. Another value driver, and this is also pretty typical, is looking at the higher margins. If it's a more premium type of a product, there is more margin there to share with your distribution partner. And here you'll see the quantifying assumptions behind that. But what I think is really cool, if you look at this value model right now, it's based on a per serving basis. Then you see like 54 cents worth of differentiated value. What's really cool is when you change that unit of measure to the distribution metric, which is the case volume per year. So here we're not talking about 54 cents of differential value. We're talking about almost $60,000 worth of differential value of stocking this product on their shelves. So that answers the pretty good questions of why should we care. Now, of course, this value has to be shared between the partner and the producer, and there's other parts of our application where you can model price sensitivity and do all those sorts of trade-offs. But what I wanted to kind of show in this quick little story is that having a powerful platform tool capability like LeveragePoint allows customers to do this more sophisticated approach to new product planning. And it's one of the reasons why I think Kalypso is interested in our technology, and we are delighted to be their technology partner. So thanks for that quick little overview. So it is time to get some response to some of the questions that have come in. And for those who would like to ask a question to Bill or to Reed, feel free to input that. There's a questions section in the panel on the right. So we have a couple questions to start off with, but if you'd like to direct a question to our Kalypso partners, please feel free to do so right now. In the meantime, I'm just going to make an announcement for our next webinar, which is coming up on July 25th, and we're really excited to have Tim Rollins from Edgeworth presenting how to confidently pitch your value proposition to demanding customers. This topic is a little bit of a departure of what we've been covering lately. We've been focusing a lot on new product development, but as many of you know, creating value alone does not mean a successful strategy. Ultimately, you need a way to arm your frontline marketing and sales folks to help you capture that value that you create. So we're really excited to have Tim talk about his experiences and provide some good case studies around that. So look for an email announcement soon. So, okay, so back to our Q&A. And again, I want to thank Reed and Bill for providing a very informative presentation. We have their contact information up there if you want to reach them directly. We have that information there, and also if you want to contact us here at LeveragePoint, our information there is as well. All right, so Bill and Reed, are you ready for some questions?
Certainly.
We're ready.
All right. Okay, the first question is, how do you take into account the competitive landscape and what other companies are offering into the DTV analysis?
So I'll take that one. Or sorry, Bill, if you want to add too, but let me just start off by saying, and if you want to pull up the value model that you did in LeveragePoint, I think that would help me speak to that. But first of all, obviously, our case study example was a very high-level summary of what actually goes into the work of a product development project. And so where we talked about that parallel time where market research is going to go off and learn some things about the market, they're not only learning what consumers want, but it's what consumers want relative to what they already have in the market. In other words, what product attributes are needed to win, and what product attributes are going to really differentiate us in the market. But if you drill into one of those value drivers that you have here, and I think this is one of the things I love about the LeveragePoint tool, is I talked a lot about the importance of assumption-based decision-making, the importance of documenting those assumptions and learning and refining assumptions over time. But this is a place where, like you said, even though you're doing this from the perspective of the retailer, if you put a value driver in there like is going to drive higher margin or new markets, you need some assumptions of why. And so you might use that note section to say, based on this attribute, we think customers will be willing to pay a price premium of X. And that's an assumption there that you might be able to refine over time. So again, having a tool gives you a structured way to capture those documents, capture those assumptions, and then as you learn, you can refine them. Bill, did you have something?
All right.
Yeah. I mean, I would just add, I think particularly in fast-moving industries, whether it's consumer goods, consumer electronics, monitoring the competitive landscape is an important part of the marketing's responsibility during development and as these decisions are being made. And oftentimes what we can do is look at not only how competitors' products are performing, but look at what features are really being valued and utilized. Oftentimes we can create superior products by defeaturing them and making simpler solutions that only contain those features that customers are really willing to pay for.
All right, so I have another question here, and it's about market research. And actually the comment is, market research is very expensive. Are you proposing that companies spend a lot of money on market research before they understand the product definition?
Well, we are proposing that, but that's actually, at least in this case of example, that was happening anyway. If you remember when I showed the as-is slide, the market research was coming first, followed by prototyping. And all we've done is really shift the sequencing of that to allow it to happen in parallel. So now, of course, there's many different types of market research, and a full-scale quantitative test market type of study can be very costly, but that's usually going to happen later in the process. The type of marketing that you're doing in these early stages is often qualitative. It could be as simple as focus groups and just trying to understand what features and benefits are most important to customers, even if we can't yet quantify that.
Yeah, if I can jump in here, just from my own experiences working with customers at LeveragePoint, there's a lot of knowledge and know-how embedded within the existing organization, and we find that by having people on a platform to think about that features benefit mapping, and I love that comment that you made about having a Rosetta Stone. Reed, I'm gonna reuse that. But having that together allows people to share what they do know, and in the early stages, you just want to make sure that you document some of the going-in assumptions, and those can be validated a lot of different ways. It doesn't require hiring a market research firm necessarily. You can validate some of these value hypotheses by just going through your customer-facing organization, whether it's sales or whether it's service, etc. So, you can do sort of point-by-point sort of research in the natural flow of communicating with customers. There's more and more of that available today, especially with internet-based companies. So you can validate things on the fly very quickly. Bill, was there anything else that you wanted to add to that last question?
Nope.
Okay. So I have one more here, and I am cognizant of the time, so we're about ready to wrap up. Last question is, how does this process help companies achieve bigger breakthrough innovation? There's a comment here about avoiding overshoot. I guess what that means is, not going too far, I guess, in product innovation. So, Reed or Bill, any comments on that?
Yeah, I'll start. I mean, I guess overshoot is a little bit of what I was trying to address with the concept of defeaturing products and being successful with a stripped down solution. If you think about the example I gave earlier of digital cameras, it is amazing the power that a digital SLR in the market has today, and the things that they're capable of doing and the professional quality that you can get from them. And yet, what do people use to take 90% of photographs? Right? They're using their phone. So unless we can create products that are both highly capable and have that same real ease of use and simplicity, we're going to struggle to reach the kind of volumes that we might have modeled when we put that product concept together. So I think that it's really important when you're doing design to value work that we hone in on those specifics that create vectors of differentiation and that customers are willing to pay for. That allows us to be much smarter about concept selection and working on products that are going to create real advantage for us in the marketplace.
All right, so that's a great place to end right there because we're out of time. I just want to let everybody know that we'll be posting a recording of this webinar on our website sometime next week, and we'll be sending out the slides as well. Again, the contact information is on the slide here, and of course, please send any general comments to us at LeveragePoint and about our webinar series in general. So I want to thank Bill and Reed one last time. Thanks very much, guys, for a great presentation.
Thanks, Ed.
Thank you.
All right, and thanks everyone for watching. We'll see you all in July.